Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the Muslim Network, a channel dedicated to growing the wealth of the Ummah through Islamically compliant businesses. I know finance can be quite daunting when you're starting out, so I wanted to document the process of how an average Muslim, such as myself with no financial background, may actually start to learn about Islamic finance, as I believe financial literacy is important for every person. Those in the Discord, you may know that this idea came about when I started looking into conventional finance and I started to learn how unfair it has become. This led me to looking into Islamic finance, a financial system that I believe is much more ethical. I am still learning and wanted to document the process, starting with high-level understanding of the fundamentals. I have heavily relied on articles that have come from much more knowledgeable people than I, and I have linked them in the description. I encourage you to read those too. With that said, we'll be looking into what riba is. There are two versions of riba. Riba al-Nasiya and Riba al-Fadl. Riba al-Nasiya translates into interest of delay and is what we're more familiar with on our day-to-day basis. When we talk about the interest on a bank loan, we are talking about Riba al-Nasiya. This is when you are given a loan amount and you pay back more than you borrowed. This is an interest for the delay. The other version of riba is Riba al-Fadl. This is the interest of excess. This is when you trade assets of non-equal value. This is more prevalent in a bartering system which we have moved away from, which is why we don't see it as often today. A common example is when one person trades 1 kilogram of dates for 2 kilograms of dates. Why would anyone do this? Your guess is as good as mine. It could be a matter of ignorance on one side and opportunism on the other side. So now that we have established the two types of riba, let's look into why they're not permissible. Before we look into the verses from the Quran, let's look at it from a logical standpoint. In the case of Riba al-Nasiya, imagine you are a desperate person that needs to provide for their family. So you may turn to the bank for a loan so you can pay for food. This resolves your problem in the short term. But the bank does not do this for free. They expect you to make payments each month with interest. If you don't make those payments, they start taking away your assets, which changes your situation from bad to worse. This is an example of how interest can be used in a predatory manner to take advantage of someone's desperation in the short term in order to squeeze out more money from them for a bit of profit. The bank will also see the person as high risk. So what do? They increase interest rates, which makes the monthly payments even harder to make, which is something we see in mortgages all the time. This example also extends to countries and as such, the people within those countries. Some of you may have heard of the International Monetary Fund and their loans. Without going into any real detail, there have been accusations of the IMF loaning money to struggling/developing countries under the guise of helping them, but doing so with such high interest rates that the economy cannot grow fast enough to outpace the interest payments that they have to make. This is known as debt trapping and is highly unethical. And it also has the objective of allowing the IMF to sit on their board to guide policy. In the case of Riba al-Fadl, imagine you are a farmer that's managed to harvest 100 kilograms of potatoes, but you can't live off potatoes, you need wheat to make bread, for example. The going rate is 2 kilograms of potatoes for 1 kilogram of wheat. So you go to another farmer that harvests wheat and offer them 2 kilograms of potatoes for 1 kilogram of wheat. The farmer with the wheat may know that you are desperate for wheat, so they may offer you a worse conversion rate where they give you 0.9 kilograms of wheat in return for 2 kilograms of potatoes. Here you can see that the potato farmer has been taken advantage of. In Islamic finance, there are two key objectives: fair trade and fair distribution of wealth. Note, I did not say an equal distribution. I say fair distribution of wealth, which means if you provide more, you deserve more. Now we can see how interest can be leveraged to take advantage of those in need and how it heavily favors those that are already wealthy. Now we can look into where Allah has prohibited the use of interest in the Quran. I will not go through every single verse, rather ones that have stood out to me, and I've taken them from QuranicTeachings.com, which I have linked in the description. The first revelation comes from Surah Al-Rum, verse 38 to 39.
فآت ذا القربى حقه والمسكين وابن السبيل ذلك خير للذين يريدون وجه الله وأولئك هم المفلحون. وما آتيتم من ربا ليربو في أموال الناس فلا يربو عند الله، وما آتيتم من زكاة تريدون وجه الله فأولئك هم المضعفون.
Here we can see there's a large focus on helping those in need without the expectation of anything in return. This gains Allah's approval. The verse goes on to highlight that even paying off interest does not benefit you in the eyes of Allah. Surah Al-Imran, verse 130.
يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تأكلوا الربا أضعافا مضاعفة واتقوا الله لعلكم تفلحون.
We can see a clear demand that Muslims should not consume riba. Surah Baqarah, verse 275.
الذين يأكلون الربا لا يقومون إلا كما يقوم الذي يتخبطه الشيطان من المس، ذلك بأنهم قالوا إنما البيع مثل الربا وأحل الله البيع وحرم الربا، فمن جاءه موعظة من ربه فانتهى فله ما سلف وأمره إلى الله ومن عاد فأولئك أصحاب النار هم فيها خالدون.
In this verse, we can see that Allah has put those that consume riba in the same standing as those that have gone crazy from the touch from the devil. This is a very powerful condemnation of interest and highlights that people will try to conflate interest in trading, i.e. profit from real economic activity like selling produce. I find this verse significant because you will find people that will claim that earning money is bad. I find this to be wholly untrue. I believe wealth is better in the hands of a Muslim that has good intentions and intends to use that money to help those in need and has earned that money through ethical, Islamically compliant methods, as opposed to someone that earned that money unethically and has no intention of helping those in need. I don't want this series to just be about what you can't do, because Islamic finance does allow you to do lots of things. It just needs to be ethical. It was made clear in the verse just mentioned that Allah has permitted trade, which means creating profit from real economic activity in an Islamically compliant method, or some would say ethical. I see them as one and the same. Some of the Sahaba, may Allah be pleased with them, were merchants. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu being the most respected and the wealthiest of them. This makes it clear that being wealthy is not a sin. What is important is how you earn that money and what you use that money for. For everything you do, you should have Allah in your heart. It is important to remember that these rules come from Allah and they have been sent to protect us from ourselves and others. With that said, may Allah bless you all, and please support the Ummah by having a look at the links to the articles that I've used in this video that have been added in the description. Join the Discord to get to know like-minded Muslims, which is also linked in the description. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.